Morning, morning, morning. Today is Monday, and on a Monday, AAC, as some of you will know, is closed. And we often get people ask us, why on earth you closed on Mondays? I want to pop down, I can't get in. Well, in order to keep AAC pristine and in good condition, we have to have some time where we're closed around the store. As annoying as that is to many customers, it's an essential ingredient of how we run things here. Unless you're closed, you can never ever really get on with the maintenance that you really need to do to keep the store healthy and happy. So it's not something we really like doing, but we have to do it. If we want nice healthy displays, if you imagine we have to look after all of this, and it's got to be tip top all the time. There's Dan there testing some water. So a Monday is 7 hours worth of maintenance or jobs that we can do. And one of the main problems at the moment that we've discovered over the weekend was we're getting a bit of noise from our circulation pumps on the display aquarium, and we couldn't quite figure out where the noise was coming from. The majority of the water movement comes from a bank of tons pumps, which is hidden right at the very back. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a big tons pump that sits around. It's probably one of the largest tons pumps that they make, and we're starting to get quite a rumble from it. Now, to be fair, they've not been off in 5 or 6 years, so this will show you the reliability of tons pumps. Of course, we're losing a little bit of flow rate as well, and as the tank has grown, you can imagine it becomes more critical. In fact, we may even assess it today and see whether we feel we want to add any extra circulation or not, but we're way overdue some maintenance on the AAC display. And of course, we could never really do that when the shop's open to the public. The AAC DT you can access from the back, but it involves removing this board, and again, we can't do stuff like that when the shop is open. So shortly we'll be removing, as I say, the tons pumps. There's about 3 or 4 behind all this massive coral. I've always been conscious that it's not nice seeing pumps on a display, but these ones we rarely really ever have to access too often. So today the ball comes down, which we have to unscrew from the rear of the system. We'll be taking that down shortly, removing the tons pumps, giving them an inspection, and then maybe acid bathing them and inspecting to see if we have any faulty impellers or problems like that. Okay, so these are the 3 tons pumps that's running now. We're going to fill them up with reverse osmosis water, so there's no influence on a hard pH. We're not even going to take them apart at this stage, because what we're going to do is run them into some acid to initially clean them, and then we will individually open them up, inspect and make sure the impellers are working well. When we took them off, we did find what the rumble was. It was just a dead snail shell sitting on top of one of the pumps that was making a rumble. But even so, as we've gone this far, we will now do some pump maintenance. One of the pumps, the biggest model, which is this one here, is completely blocked, and there's vermeted snails and all sorts growing on it, sponges and things like that. So it is a worthy thing to do. While we're doing our maintenance, it's always good to assess all the coral health. We've got a tenuous in there that could do with removing or fragging down. If you've got a coral that's suffering or something's not quite right, you know, the best thing to do is not keep all your eggs in one basket. But overall, the health of the tank I'm pretty pleased with, considering the amount of maintenance or lack of time for maintenance that we get. It's always nice to spend some time. I don't know why we don't see more marine ponds, because I always think that a top down on a tank is the best view you'll ever get, because it's probably the closest to nature. If you ever paddle in a coral reef or around the rock pools, even in the UK south coast, you will always find that you're looking from top down, and it just seems the most natural way to view a reef tank. So maybe one day I'll have a marine pond somewhere. I always fancied the idea. But the other thing we've discovered is that we've got a ton of coral growing on our weir cone. We've got Psilopora growing on the weir, which of course in turn is restricting the overflow. The only trouble is, if you leave it this long, the water level would have risen by a few mil, which means a lot of these corals, when we go to turn the tank back on, probably will be now exposed. You can see where some of them are plateauing out, as they would do on the reef. They hit a certain point and then they start to table. It's always one job. You know, we've come this morning to clean the pumps. Now we're finding that weir combs need work. You start one job, as I'm sure you all realise, and you always end up with more jobs, which is why you should never really do any tank maintenance unless it's AM. There we go, we can see the problem we've got. The weir comb has actually been filled where this Bacillopora, that's been growing there, and that's been blocking up a third of the weir comb, which means that the water levels on the AAC DT have been running around about probably 10 mil too high. It'll be interesting when we go to plug all this back in later on what water level we get. I'll probably have to adjust the return pump speed just to be able to keep the corals that are close to the surface flooded. But here's a very good reason why maintenance should be carried out more regular. We'll probably have to acid bath this now along with the pumps in order to release some of this, because it's too fragile. This was when Deltec first made the removable weir combs. They were all handmade. Very, very special design. Now D&D have adopted that design on all their Reef Pros. But the idea with the DD weir comb is to allow water to flow very quickly through the weir comb if it gets blocked, which it can sneak up through these joints here. But these are all glued joints, so I don't want to be too rough with it. So we'll try acid bathing it and clean it from there. We've now got our cooking pot, what I call a cooking pot, which is now pure RO with several boil kettles of water. So the temperature we want it hot, we don't want it boiling, to get the best reaction from acid. Generally I'll use this, which is Easy Clean, which I believe is some form of citric acid, which is okay. But when you're doing some drastic work, I use a lot of Kill Rock. Kill Rock's safe around human stuff, so like kettles, and it's a different type of acid. I believe it's a formic acid, but it's really, really effective. If you've got a lot of calcium carbonate build up, I'd really recommend it. Fantastic for showers as well. But yeah, we use quite a lot of this. I mean, it's quite dilute. You need to be very, very careful with it, so it will catch your breath. Now what we'll do is we'll fill this up now with hot water, and that activates it, and then we'll plug the pumps in with the weir combs as well that need descaling, and then we'll let it brew. And I reckon you need probably about 2 hours roughly on it. Okay, right, just a little warning. When you do this, one thing you've got to be very aware of, the acid alone will take your breath away. So we've got our back door open here at AAC, and it's quite well ventilated. If you do have corals growing on things, just be aware that some of those corals will carry toxins, and if you introduce them to RO water and acid and then circulate them and you add heat, you will be putting those toxic vapours into the atmosphere. Do please go careful if you do anything like this. Okay, well, it's been around about an hour and a half. Just had some lunch. Can't be too long because we've obviously got a lot of corals poking out of water as we speak. We're at low tide, so occasionally I've just been splashing a little bit of water on them. We can't leave it much longer now. So the pumps have been in their acid bath and the weir comb as well now, for about an hour and a half, like I said. So we'll be now exchanging all of the acid bath for tap water. The reason why we'll move over to tap water is of course to neutralise the acid. Tap water is actually a very beneficial tool if you use it properly. You wouldn't want to use it obviously around your tank perhaps and water changes and things. Very important that we rinse and rinse well. So we'll change the water and then we'll rinse the pumps, and then we will start to clean, maybe remove the impellers and so forth. The acid's been removed and now the pumps are circulating in just tap water, and already we can tell, even without cleaning them at this stage, like toothbrushing them and brushing them off, already the velocity in the bucket is way more than it was. So now we're just in the process of flushing the pumps. We'll get the pumps back in there, the return pumps back on and running, so the corals are now submerged again. Weir comb now absolutely spotless. Removed all of the coral and coral line algae, and hopefully we'll see a dramatic improvement in flow rate. We've realised that since acid bath in the pumps, we've seen a massive increase in flow in the bucket itself, so we could even be in a situation later where we have to start throttling back the flow a little bit until the pumps sort of bed back in again where they were. Pumps are back in, and wow, the most noticeable bit is on our weeping willow toadstool and on our Gonopora. after the pump clean, I reckon we've gained a good 10 or 15% more flow. Even on that millipora there, the polyps are absolutely smashing it. And normally I'd be a little bit worried, you know, you don't ever really want to rapidly increase or make any changes. But I think actually the tank will really benefit. Even this fungia a minute ago was getting blasted completely. There we go, look, see, the whole flesh is moving at the moment. But I think things will slow down over the next few hours. We're going to move on now to a water change. We still believe in water changes. Okay, so we're now starting to drain the main display down. We've already drained the rear sump down and down to the bottom 2 inches and took out about 200 litres, but as you can see we're now starting to expose the corals to air a little on the tops there. And I say this will be the second time today. I wouldn't normally recommend that maintenance is carried out in such a huge amount in one day, you know, only ever really if you need to do your pump clean, say for example, do that one day and then do a water change the next day. If you do too much, sometimes you can miss something, which I do. Ultimately you can end up in a disaster, but as we're only left with a Monday to do the maintenance on, you know, we have to try and fit quite a lot in, and today, like I said, is display tank day. You can now see corals are becoming more and more exposed, but I don't really worry about it. A lot of beginners, they tend to worry about exposing their corals. I think it depends on the species. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this with Euphyllia, although I have seen on a coral reef before heads of Euphyllia dripping with slime in the sun. Some of these coral animals can be exposed for hours out on the reef. As long as you've not got a draft or cold air washing over the corals. It's quite humid in here today. Deliberately turned the air conditioning off. Cover's gone back over the weir. We always put a cover over the weir because that's where of course all of our wrasse love to end up jumping into. Might be worth you considering that if you've never covered a weir box up before, if you've got an exposed weir. I just use a sheet of egg crate which protects anything from jumping in. Okay, so at the end of the day now, pump serviced. Tank's looking a bit cloudy after its big water change, but some of the corals are closing up now as we're coming towards the end of the day. Camera's not really picking it up, but it's quite blue now and the lights are dropping. That was Monday maintenance. Today was really, all of it was spent just on maintaining the display tank. We'll always try and squeeze in a few smaller jobs during public service hours. Cover's still down at the moment at the top up there, because just in case we come in the morning and something's not quite right with one of the pumps we did, we've already had to make a adjustment to the direction of one of the pumps. But that's it.